Well, hi, Juan. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. I'm up in Atlanta, and I'm not sure where you are today because you travel around so much. Are you in St. Pete or are you down in Peru?
Actually, I'm stuck in Peru during the COVID. The country shut down while I was here, and the airport is still closed. So they just announced flights back. So as soon as there is a flight from American or United, I will be on that one. But for now,
well, you're certainly not in a bad place. I know there's some great sailing down there, and I'm sure you're having a great time with the family.
Yeah, well, this has given me an opportunity to stay on land long enough. Actually, I didn't realize I checked my passport and I was flying every 45 days somewhere. So 6 months on land, I just need to fly now.
I know when I was working with Gill, one of the sailing apparel companies, over the last few years, it was always a bit tricky to track you down. You were flying here and there and in Europe, and but I know that was because of your passion for the sport and for your business. So I remember one when we first were introduced to each other. Well, not really introduced. You called the company looking to if you could sell some RWO, the small dinghy hardware parts. And I was always amazed that there was this guy on the end of the phone. I've got to be honest, Juan, it was a little difficult sometimes understanding every word, but we managed to communicate. And there was this guy in the middle of Texas, and it was called MAURIPRO Sailing. It wasn't on the east or the west coast or even the southern part of Texas. And it's been a real thrill really over the last 15, 18 years to get to know you and to get to know your company really well. And you really are a success story and a huge part of the US sailing industry. You've had great growth, and I know you've helped many customers along the way and helped people to get into the sport of sailing. I know that's close to your heart as well. So tell us a bit about where MAURIPRO Sailing came from.
It's more of a crazy story when, probably not everybody knows, but I moved to the USA in '99. Had the opportunity to start working with Doyle in St. Pete as a sales rep. And before that, I had been working for almost 6-7 years with the same loft with MAURIPRO at that time. Growing up in Peru at that time, there was no sailing, no support for sailing. So I make a deal with my family that I can go sailing as long as I will make the money out of sailing. So I will start selling sails so I can afford the next regatta, and that led to one and another one. So we will sell sails here and there. So I ended up in St. Pete with Mark, which I truly appreciate what he did for me at that time. We worked together for a long time. And then at that point, I got invited, which is part of how the story developed, to be the manager of the Doyle Cleveland Buffalo Law. That should have nothing unusual other than the fact that I have never seen snow in my life until I moved there in November.
I'm thinking Buffalo, New York. Well, it's a fabulous place, obviously Niagara Falls is close by, but seems like a strange place to have a sail loft, but fantastic.
So I last 6 months and left and moved to Texas in the middle of the summer.
Oh, great.
During that time, the way the story developed is during that time, we were racing Mount 30s, Far 40s, and other classes. And everywhere we went, there was always a request, and this is 2000.
Yeah.
There was always a request for a bowman, trimmers, or something. So to be honest, I kind of get tired of putting crews together for both that were not mine. And I was thinking how I can make money out of this. So the first MAURIPRO sailing website was never intended to be a store. it was MAURIPRO Sailing Professional Service, or Mauri Professional Sailing Services. That was actually the name. And what I did is we create a website where you will put yourself like sort of an Angie's List for sailors back in 2000. So you will have your sailing resume there, and every time somebody will call and they will get paid, I will get a commission off of it. That was the first website. As we went forward, completely failure, nobody wanted to pay for us. So there was not enough money to be made, but that turned into every weekend, we will be selling a couple of halyards, a couple of winches, and eventually they developed, oh, I also need jackets. So by sheer coincidence or accident, then suddenly we were selling sailboat hardware on the weekends. And then the next question was, well, how we can do it on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? And the answer back then was, let's build a website, which at that time sounds like what you're doing, like building a website for selling sailboat parts. And yes, we were in the middle of Texas on top of that. So there was no sailing venue close by. So the first transaction happened in October of 2003 on the website. And it was a Harken Magic Box. I don't know if you remember those.
Yeah, oh, yeah, fantastic piece of kit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not to make our life easy, that part that was loaded was discontinued. So the first ever item sold on our website was a Harken discontinued part. And obviously we didn't know how to run a refund or do anything. And Harken happened to keep always two as part of their, what I call their museum. And they were kind enough to sell to us one of those. And that's how our relation started with them. So again, it was a bumpy start on the online world at a time where there was no social media, no high speed, no nothing. And so everybody was trying to discover how to be part of this new idea of the e-commerce back in 2000.
Well, that's very interesting, because on the other side of the page, Juan, absolutely in that time, many companies that were selling products were struggling a little bit because they had all these dealers that had what we're referred to as bricks and mortar stores, and they were fully engaged in their business in the bricks and mortar stores and didn't really have time to innovate and pursue the internet business. And so there was a little bit of a push and pull between, many companies. I probably Harken were one of those as well, certainly at Gill. Well, how should we really look after these new up and coming internet online sales company? So you were really one of the market leaders to do that. And I obviously today you are a leader in the sailing industry for online sales, along with a handful of other dealers. But you've certainly perfected the sales side and the marketing side. So tell us a little bit more about how your sailing experiences have perhaps helped you with sales, because obviously you've done some dinghy sailing, you've done some offshore sailing, so having experience with the products must really be a great advantage.
I think what made a little bit of a difference, I kind of had an advantage in some way because I came from the textile industry and my background was on industrial design, and I was always involved. So it was always an advantage to understand how fabrics work on sails and what made a good sail and a bad sail from the material point of view. Also, on the other hand, what I really enjoy about sailing was the tuning of the boat, the squeezing that extra tenth of a knot. So running seminars before and after events was always kind of what we did to make difference. That blended into being a boat owner, how I would like to shop for parts. And kind of the frustration at that time was going to go to a brick and mortar store. And I understand it, but they were promoting their current inventory, what they had on hand. Not necessarily everything that we might need, but what it was there. So kind of disappointing to see the salesman at the time trying to sell what was on the shelf, not exactly what we needed. So the website was designed from the sailor's point of view, not a salesman point of view. It was always designed to how we would like to shop, what do we need to find next to what that goes together. Let's say on a traveler, well, we need the traveler car, the truck, but we need the end controls that cannot not be there. And so the whole website was designed literally closing our eyes and trying to say how we would like to walk the aisles and what do we need to find next to what. The other example was if we are going to sell halyards, let's make sure that the shackles are right next to the lines because those two go together. And that ended up being complicated on its own because the multiple pages that had to be developed. But we always thought about how we can make it easier for customers to find what they're looking for. And the website kind of reflects that. Now, I think that's what it can handy because we will go to boats and every time we have to put together a system, we will try to mimic that experience through the website. No? And we will call customers and friends and say, walk us through the process of how you will like to be supported. And what we did is we turned that into the same steps on the website. So we do a lot of recording of phone calls and how the Q&A develops, that's how the transition on the website goes.
So when you got started, it's interesting that you wanted to supply pretty much all the parts that a customer, if you like, on their boat needed. So you must have had to go to other companies, you know, because we're talking about a halyard, you mentioned the halyard. Well, so, you know, a company like, let's say, Spinlock, who has their, you know, rope jammers, you must have had to approach them. You know, if you're sitting down trying to get the best system, you know, Harken, you mentioned them, they have great systems, but sometimes, you know, companies don't have the 100% answer to the perfect system. So how did you go about, you know, finding these other companies?
If you go back to 2000, we're talking about now 20 years, correct? The sailing internet model didn't exist at all. So
right.
That was not even part of the conversation. And the model at the time was that the manufacturer will go to a distributor who will sell a couple of brands and then eventually to the dealers. And at that point, you had to be a brick and mortar store. There was no way to be an internet only.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah, you remember that. You are one of
them.
Yes. Shut us down.
Yeah, yeah. I remember one of our phone calls. It was after the RWO, and you were beginning to develop. Sailing was coming on as online as a brand, and the internet was, you know, slowly gaining momentum for people purchasing things off the internet. I mean, today you can't imagine not having the internet to purchase, especially with COVID. Yeah. I mean, here at our house, we have a delivery almost every day. A lot of it's vitamins, by the way, you know, but, and yeah, and I remember we'd probably spoken a couple of times because of RWO. And then, you know, a top brand at the time in sailing apparel was Gill. And we were still frightened of internet companies because the bricks and mortar stores all said, well, you know, they don't carry any stock and you drop ship for them and they don't have any overheads. Well, that absolutely wasn't true. You know, if you needed to be successful, internet sales, you had to spend money, you had to advertise. But I remember saying to you, one, the only way you're going to have Gil is if you carry stock. You must have some stock to be able to sell Gil. And, you know, I remember visiting, you made a commitment, you believed in the brand and many other brands, and you bought the stock. And I think you just stuffed it in a cupboard and left it there because we also offered drop shipping. But you were certainly committed to getting, you know, brands that people really were looking for.
Yeah, I think that the big misunderstanding of that time was that it was not as simple as that, because on those days it was much easier to get somebody to take care of a brick and mortar store than somebody to take care of a website. Today it will be normal. You pick up the phone and there is thousands of people with the ability of doing it. At that time we were learning. And we were learning as we went, and people didn't have the images. We did, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of images, because they were not designed for the internet, they were designed for print, the old print days. And companies like Gil will have the requirements that we also, as you properly pointed, fulfill. Like people like to believe at that time that we never got the stock. We had a lot of stock. Yeah. Especially because we are now having to go through every single rule from every single company that we approach. So we have a ton of inventory. The difference was that we had the inventory and everything else. And as you recall, our commitment was always, we will buy the inventory, but that's not where I think is going to be the investment. Let us also commit this amount of dollars into marketing. And at the end, that's what I think was the key, that our commitment to marketing and remarketing was always bigger in terms of dollar amount than the requirement for the inventory was. And companies that have a lot of parts that need to be put together found the appeal on working with us on the fact that we were willing to present the whole range, which cost building those websites, massive websites. And at that point, it was done by hand. There was no automation. It was hand coded, no tons of hours of Excel and coding and taking pictures and missing pictures, writing content that was never intended to be on the internet. It was intended to be on a print catalog. So it was pretty much countless hours of handwriting every single line of code. Today is much simpler. I'm gonna say super simple, but easier than it was 20 years ago, definitely.
Well, and you make a good point, because the manufacturers, many of the the majority of bricks and mortar dealers, even the distributors that purchase from the manufacturers, they didn't carry all the products, a point you just made. Whereas on the internet, you can actually display all the products, because you're not investing in the actual, you know, cost of the product itself. There's the image, and you have to write, you know, the descriptions and things. And then once the manufacturers caught on to that, you know, they quickly realized that, you know, the internet's here to stay, and we need to be able to provide the good descriptions for the internet companies, and also the images that are required, you know, the front and the back, the underneath of a product, the inside, whatever it is. Because when a customer comes to your website, you know, they may not be talking to a person. I know you have that ability as well, but you know, so they want to see everything about the product. So the manufacturers also had to make a bigger commitment and investment to companies like yourselves. But what is interesting, you briefly mentioned it a minute ago, this is not something you do on your own. And it was a fairly new industry. It wasn't easy to get, you know, people that could come in that knew sailing, and that also, you know, knew about websites. So tell us a bit about the team, you know, that you have, because that's something, frankly, from all the time I've known you, from you know, a few years after you got started, you always seem to have good people around you.
As you know, running a company is no different than running a sailing team. Okay? It's true that most of the time the skipper will take the glory of a win, but it's impossible to do it by yourself.
No, we know that's not true, Juan. You and I have sailed together and I'm the crew. You know I like to take the glory.
But besides that, one single opportunity that you, out of 5 on the boat, you are the one that won everything. Okay. Now, what we always was to try to find not necessarily the best for every position, but every new member had to bring something that will make us better as a team. And a lot was the camaraderie. We spent a lot of time trying to work together. So empathy for me was always important, and their ability to communicate and be willing to take risks and adapt to changes. That's something that I work with a lot of brilliant people over the years, but the ones that excel were the ones that were ready to start again as soon as we were done. Like, and you were there a couple of times. We just revamped the website and suddenly a new tool, new technique, new technology will show up and we have to start again. And I think that over time kept us on the front end, the constant updating, the acceptance of the project will never be ended. As long as the internet is evolving, we will never be done. But our team went from, you know Maya, who...
Well, Maya's a very important part of the team, Juan. I think you should explain to everybody about Maya, how good a job Maya does, not just, you know, in the company, but actually, you know, putting up with you, quite frankly.
Well, besides our personal relation, we started working together almost 35 years ago. We came out of school in Peru and went directly to work for the same company. And even in school, it was kind of weird because when we were teaming up, I will take the marketing side and she will take the execution. And that immediately turned, when we started the business, the same. What it's more interesting, what I respect the most is that when she moved to the US to follow the same dream, she didn't speak, she was not able to say hello in English.
Wow.
You know, she speaks Spanish and Italian.
Yeah.
So she ended up learning as the business was evolving, and I don't know how she decided to take on customer care at that time. And then she became the link between the company and our suppliers. It has always been there. And now, as today, she has an amazing team. Combined, the top 3 members of her team, I think combined, they can speak like 9 different languages, completely fluent, because that's where the company went. It went global. So definitely I know Italian, French, English, Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and French can be handled with no problem.
And American.
And American. So I think that's the key component, because our business, who started in the US, has gone global. That was key, understanding cultures, different needs, different approach, even different ways of writing an email. There is cultures and countries that run business in an informal way. There are countries that run it in a formal way, and so on. And on the other hand, we always try to balance the number of sailors that work for us with the number of business and marketing oriented team members. There was a permanent discussion if we were really a sailing company selling sailboat parts or a marketing company selling sailor parts. Okay, so again, it was that back and forward, and we found passion on both, and I think that was the best outcome, that we had a team of passionate sailors working with a team of passionate marketeers that blended and took the challenge of not only winning a sailboat race, but winning. First, we have to win into the business model. That was our first win, when we were accepted that, yes, we can be one dealer. Okay. You fought really hard not to make it happen. So.
Well, on the other side, I was getting a lot of heat, and I know all the companies were from the bricks and mortar dealers, and who had been really, you know, they'd been our business for 20 years or more. So
we never took it in the wrong way. Actually, we approach that resistance the same way we will approach in a sailboat race. The better the competition, the better you have to be part of the game. And that pushback is what helped us be better. So actually zero regrets, actually all the contrary. And then try to stay ahead, trying to prove that we were relevant to the conversation, and forcing us to double efforts, not to be more upfront, to be at the front edge of technology for our customers, but also on the front end of promoting sailing. And that's still a big chunk of our marketing investment, no? To get people out sailing.
Yeah, well, MAURIPRO really flourished and was certainly one of the leading companies on the internet sales business side. But it was interesting. Many people I've asked, when younger people, oh, you know, they say, oh, I'd love to have your job. I'd love to be in a sailing job. And I look at them and say, well, how much sailing do you like to do? Because for many of us, really excluding you, Juan, once you're in the sailing business, it's very hard to go sailing. You know, and I'm not talking about the pro sailors, but I must say, over the years, one thing I have admired, apart from, you know, your business sense, is the fact that you have kept it fun, and you do compete in regattas. And in the early days, I remember some of the keel boats you were sailing, that you know, I used to think, gosh, you know, Juan, he's out there doing it, you know, and I thought, he's out there doing it, so he's meeting new customers, new people, and, you know, obviously bringing those customers to his business. Whereas many other companies, it's not they can't do that, they're just so busy, or they can't find the right people that are true enthusiasts. They love the job, they love what they do, but they love sailing more to keep going. But you've managed to sort of balance that. Although I must admit, sometimes I see things on Facebook and I think, God, Juan, he's off again somewhere. But I know when you do travel, there's always that opportunity, because you did mention, and I think a lot of companies were very slow to pick up on, once you're on the internet, your business is global. And I know, okay, all the companies probably think that now, but 10 years ago, MAURIPRO Sailing, you know, based in America, they were already thinking global, because, you know, we were getting calls from Australia and Germany, and what are you selling this guy MAURIPRO? He's selling to our customers. And I know you didn't do it completely intentionally, but I also know at the back of your mind was, hey, we're an internet company, we're a global company. And now it's the business model for many companies, you know. They all have their own web business, and, you know, they're talking global, not just their own country. So you were very much, you know, one of the leaders in that respect.
It didn't happen intentionally. I would lie if I would say that we came with the idea. I think it came because when Google started growing at that time to become what they are today, the first thing that they did, they was trying to put the content that was relevant to the search of the person searching on wherever they were. And because the sailing internet business was not as developed as it was in America at that time. Like the 4 or 5 stores in the US 10 years ago were large, in the internet, were larger than the counterparts in Europe and Australia. So we used to show on Google searches in Australia, in Japan, and so on. And that's where that customer base came. Obviously, in parallel, we were racing on those venues. So we will travel to a regatta, Europe or South America. So in some way, yes, the name was found on the internet early, but we also were there running a seminar. I remember one year we did back-to-back seminars in Colombia when it was not a big market, but people from the Aruba and Curacao will show for those events, and then they will back to their own islands and so on. So a little bit of that was, to be honest with you, also that was the perfect excuse to go and have weekend somewhere.
No, you don't say. I know you went to Brazil and a few other places too.
Yeah, those Brazilian trips were always fun.
Yeah,
but we end up in a lot of other places, and we always try to combine business and pleasure and blended. Like we done a lot of cruising, especially in the Bahamas, but we took the opportunity to test a new windlass or shoot a video, or if we will be doing Mets in Amsterdam. Yeah, there is a lot of business meetings, but hey, let's go and spend another week traveling around. So it was never a missed opportunity, or like we did with you in the BBI. There was an opportunity to spend 2 days with the Guild distributor, and at the same time we went sailing. So
well, that was a wonderful time. We we've often talked about it, and it's those memories live forever. You and I don't see each other very often now, for sure, but if we meet up again in 10 years time, it'll be, hey, remember that time down in the BVIs? We had a great time. There was a lot of shouting and yelling, like goes on, because we all had the same goal. We wanted to win, and we came off the water absolutely exhausted every night. We'd given it everything, and those memories live forever. And we met some great people, other competitors that we hadn't met before, and it leads to lifelong memories. That's the beauty of the sport that we're in. I mean, it really is a fantastic sport.
And that's what I miss during these days the most. It's not the windward mark, is the traveling and the dinners after, the conversations, the friendships and the relations. And being on the water, I think, is the perfect excuse, but it's that time of getting places, knowing people, enjoying different meals, different cultures. And I don't know, probably I was lucky enough to grow in a place and a time where we never, I grew up in Peru, but my father always thought about the planet. His business was always about trying to get it global. So I think I picked the one from him, where it was never about thinking about local markets, but global markets. And even during school, taking international business class or different languages, even international tax law, classes that years ago I might say, I would never use this. And now with internet and goods traveling from country to country, it's like an everyday conversation. Is okay, well, tariffs and so on. But,
well, he was obviously a visionary, because who would have known that you could have used those skills, in this day and age. But you know, we just never know when we're at school and some of the things we're learning, or at college, you know, are they going to be useful? Why am I really learning this? Well, you know, 20 years, 30 years later, all of a sudden it's, you know what, I learned that, I can do this. And so, you know, you obviously learned a lot from him, especially with the vision for global sales, because I know that's been a big part. It was frightening for some of the companies in the early days because, you know, distributors have certain territories, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's all these companies from different countries being able to, or the customers are reaching out to them because they've, in many respects, stumbled across them through Google, and the pricing at the time may be a bit more of an advantage. You know, with global sales, pricing sometimes is a bit of a tricky one to get past, especially when you know, shipping and everything, the rates came down, so people were buying things from other countries. So again, you know, you were really in on the forefront of global thinking.
Yeah, today
So
is
what?
definitely a challenge, but
So I was going to say, so we talked about what you know, what you've been doing. You and I haven't seen each other for a while. Obviously, we keep up now and again with a few texts and things. But what's next for MAURIPRO Sailing?
um, I think that what we want to do is to be able to provide better content. And by better content means being able to provide instructional videos, build the how-to library that we have, and be able to take what is going to be the next need, because obviously people in general, the market and the overall population is using more the internet today than any time before. And I don't think that's going to change. So better online tools, and on the logistics side, with the limit capacity right now, with planes not flying that much, moving goods is a really challenge. And sailors are spread out across the planet, so we don't know where the next delivery is going to be. So being able to accommodate everything, I will assume it's going to be a consolidation of distribution centers from the manufacturers, and then they're going to be in need of a logistics tool that will allow us as an industry to deliver that spare part, that elusive spare part for somebody in Tahiti. No? Somebody broke a windlass and they just need not a complete windlass, but just a small part to repair it. So I think that's the challenge as a company trying to serve the market. As a tool, anything that we can do interactive, anything that will allow you, the user of the website, as a tool to find that part that fits the application on your boat, is the next step. And obviously anything that goes on your phone, no? Which is
Right.
technology, new technology, how to speed up the process of finding parts. But I don't think it's a secret, but everything that is video is going to evolve into more and more become the norm, and less images. You know? So, and that's where I think we will put the effort on how to develop a tool that will allow to find places from your phone directly on the boat, and so on. So,
Well, that's interesting because you know, if somebody's cruising, sailing anywhere in the world, and something does break, I know you and I are both very passionate about cars. That's a whole nother story. But you know, when we're looking for a car part, YouTube is a fantastic resource. You know, the videos that, you know, how to fix, some solutions. And, you know, for sailing as well, you know, there are many videos up there. A lot of manufacturers will put up, you know, Harken, we talked about them, how to fix a winch or how to service a winch. So that is important. You know, when people, going right back to where we started, you know, I'm looking for a traveler system. Well, here are all the parts. Here's the kit. Well, thank you, MAURIPRO Sailing. One, could you fly down and show me how to fix all this? Well, no, but go to our YouTube and it's all there. So yeah, that's going to be very, very helpful. Very helpful.
An important component in what you said that most of the time gets overlooked. First, I'm shocked that you have not told any stories of the last time we went car racing.
Don't get me started. Okay. Don't get me started.
I'm going to leave it there. Okay, you owe me dinner, but
right.
But what most customers tend not to believe that the industry have not done is if you own let's pick it up, a BMW 3 Series from 1990, there is going to be a part number for that part that you need. I go to a website, I say I have this car, this is my VIN number, this is the part I need. Super simple, no second guessing. Unfortunately, if I have an Islander 32 from 1989 and I need a new traveler, there is no data, no way for us as a company to tell you what is the part number that you need because there has not been recorded information of how those boats, I'm not saying just that brand, any brand, was put together, or if previous owners have changed the traveler. They have upgraded systems. So there is no track, and that's the toughest part, getting the email from the customer say, hey, I'm trying to upgrade my traveler system, and sometimes I feel that we don't do a good job because we cannot reply them with the part number and link, but the truth is that pretty much every boat has been modified.
Yeah.
In some sort of nature, they has been modified. And that's where I think customers have to not be patient, but more understanding over the fact that, yes, we will help, but we need your help to help you. So the back and forward is not a lack of knowledge. It's reassuring that you're going to get the right part.
Well, that's where customer service comes in. You know, the people that you have working with you, they have to know the right questions to ask. You know, as an example, the main sheet track. Well, what's the distance between the holes that secure the track, you know, to the boat? Because different tracks, you know, had different holes, and people just don't want to be drilling more holes in their boats. So asking, well, having the knowledge to be able to ask the right questions is very important. And then all from there, you know, it needs to go up, you know, on the web page so they can click. These are some of the questions that we need you to look up before we can help you.
Yeah, and as a sample, even we were talking with Lumar a couple of minutes ago, there is somewhere around 2,500 different spare parts for Lumar loaded into the website. And over many, many times, part of the problems that we have is even the numbers or sizes, let's say, of a winch has been worn out on the boat. So even say, okay, what winch do I have? No, or how we can help you. So things that we are doing is we are creating interactive tools where you can go see an image and within one click, it will take you to the part that you need, okay? But with thousands of parts on a sailboat, and for these many years, is taking a toll. And that's what I think is worth the money be invested on providing better tools, better selection guides. And going back to the days when you were saying, the old complaint about, oh, somebody doesn't have all the inventory needed. Well, A, it's impossible to have every single part from every single manufacturer in a warehouse. But I think that's not where the added value stays today. In any company, in the internet days, is the how-tos. That's where we as a company can bring value to the market or not. And if we are not able to do that, we will become irrelevant. Right. And our conversations every Monday start how we can become more relevant this week than the week before. And that will keep us in business. If not, we're just selling sailboat parts.
Right. And sailing, you know, one area I know you've been very passionate about is not so much, well, obviously growing sailing as a hobby and as a sport, but actually getting people back out in their boats to go sailing. There are so many boats that are left unused because people are more busy now than they've ever been, or they just can't find the time or the energy to go sailing. And I know from the years of conversations that, you know, we've had, and you've had these with many other people as well, I know because they've told me, that, you know, if we can make it easier for them to repair their boat or fix it, or just reach out to them and say, hey, you know, why aren't you going sailing? Is there something we can help you to get your boat ready to go sailing? And that can all be done through, you know, through videos, and encourage them and remind them how good the good times were all those years ago. So you've certainly been a big influence in that area.
And that's why I believe that the best way we can help sailing is to promote point A to point B races, not the straight lines, but as much as I love windward, leeward, and the adrenaline of those, more even on these days, the ability to have non-die-hard racing sailors on board, like my wife, your wife, somebody else that will enjoy the time on the water without having to hike for every single upwind leg, no? Or having to be a super skilled sailor. So the ability to go to point A to point B, even if it's A to A, no, around an island and be back a couple of hours, the reaching legs, no, the color of the sails, everything helps bringing sailing to be a more, I'm going to call it more fun, more enjoyable for more people than the few that love the 100 boats on the starting line, no? Killing each other for that extra foot of advantage at the starting line versus, hey, let's get a couple of friends that might like to go sailing, but they're not going to hike Taco Shell for hours, no? So I think helping everybody to be better sailor is always important, but finding a way to make it simple and more enjoyable. And by simple, I don't mean simple as few people on board. I was watching a couple of images of the IOR Maxis from the 80s with 20, 25 people, and everybody was doing something. And I will take that ride versus the mini maxi of today, super cool ride, and we get these invitations, but half the crew are just sitting there.
Yeah, the crews are just designed for the weight. You know, they have to be there as ballast. It's certainly very different from, you know, the 80s where we were talking earlier about, you know, you had a boat, it had a mainsail up, but it had, for the want of a better word, 2 or, you know, more spinnakers with the bloopers. And there weren't enough hands on board to keep control of all the sails. And that was the thrill of it, you know, especially when it was windy. And, you know, there were lots of colors back then as well. It seems these days all the sails are black with a white spinnaker. So very hard to distinguish the boats.
But it's interesting, as we were talking with Sharon Green early this morning, her pictures reflect that the spinnakers will match the graphics on the boat.
Yep.
And the t-shirts will match that. But every boat had crews with uniforms. And then I start looking after we were done with the organization. I opened my file and said, when was the last time I wore a boat uniform that reflect the graphics on the boat? And I cannot find any of the latest. And yeah, I look weird. Okay, I'm not saying that this fashionable in no way, but then I started thinking, probably we're the only sport, team sport, that does not have a jersey. Every other one have one that you will recognize. No, the fans will have the same. We are the only ones that we jump on the boat and everybody's wearing something different. And so
well, I think for the professional teams, that you're not allowed on the boat unless you have the crew uniform. But I think I hear what you're saying. There's even if you're just going racing for the day, there's a good feeling, a team camaraderie if you all happen to turn up in the same color polo shirt or in the same shorts. And also, if you were talking to Sharon, those are the pictures she's going to take. If you want to be in the pictures, you've got to look good. And some owners, they say, well, I really don't care about that, but we know deep down they want to be in the pictures.
Yeah, everybody wants to be on the picture. That's part of the reason you buy a boat. So,
yeah. Yeah.
But it definitely has been a really, really nice 20 years. I'm not going to say that every story was a happy one, not every one was a sad one, but I will not change any. I think that all of them have helped us provide what we felt at that time the market needed. It was a new approach to supporting the sailing community.
Well, you certainly challenged a lot of companies on that one. And I would say your challenges have mostly come to fruition now, because all the companies now have their own website. A lot of them, unfortunately, are selling in competition to, people like yourself. But you still have the advantage because, it's what you do. They manufacture and design products, whereas for the want of a better word, MAURIPRO is customer service support to the customers, and wants to make sure that everybody who's involved in sailing actually has access to the products, to the knowledge, repairs, whatever it happens to be. And I think as an industry, there are a lot of great people like yourself that have really pushed the envelope on marketing, on selling, but also getting people back interested, in this great sport of sailing, not just in America, but worldwide. So I think that's something, MAURIPRO Sailing should be proud of. And, we're certainly looking forward to the future, and I'll look forward to our conversations as we sit on a beautiful beach somewhere or a big boat, chatting about the old times. But, we're both always pushing the envelope on what's next and how we can improve.
Well, I will be unfair if I don't say that I appreciate what you are saying and using the word you. But again, it will be completely unfair if I take the you and not say that it's not me. Okay, granted. Okay, I might be defaced. My name was there, as I told you. Why is there? It was just sheer accident. But I cannot do it without the people that work with me. And I'm confident that if, for whatever reason, I will not be here, they will carry on. And I have a team of several people around the world that I cannot think about doing this without them, and without going to the whole list. But as I said, Maya's team is amazing and highly qualified. Somebody with a degree on business administration, but a master's on international logistics. Her other team member can speak fluent in 5 different languages, and super professional also. And on the customer care, there is a friend, team member by the name of Gonzalo, who runs a super oil machine when it comes to customer care. And he got 3 key members that can tackle any question, and they are passionate about customer service. And we have also another person who is key for the operations, who becomes a Google specialist, and the webmasters, the team of webmasters that keep the website. And there is a new team on graphic design and video production that are doing an amazing job, especially, and you will see it during the boat show, how they have moved the bar a little bit higher, even for ourselves, to a point that the website that they developed for the boat show, I consider is better than the website they developed for our store. So, and one of the other key team members that you are going to hear a lot, her name is Andrea. She is out of our office in Barcelona, also a die-hard marketeer. And again, it's people from around the world that comes together to allow us to extend the hours, because by having people in Asia and Europe, our customer care can work extended hours. So they start really, really early, they finish really, really late within the American time zone. So 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, there is somebody in our organization already taking care of customers, and midnight they still just ending the day. So, but again, this is that passion between them and their professionalism and the youth. I'm the really, really old guy in this organization. As they tend to laugh. I really want to screw up the average age of the company. But I think that's what is going to drive this new generation of sailors and internet savvy, new tools. No, it's not you and me. No, you and me are more for the pink umbrella. Okay, but this new group of super energetic people willing to do extra hours in order to get the job done, what are making the difference, and they are the company. No? Okay, well, I will call it that I started, but they are the ones that are going to make it into the next level. It's not me. I hope I already did my part. I'm ready to go sailing.
Well, I don't blame you, but it's a very good point. The youth are very important to everybody's business, and they've grown up with the technology. Now, the technology is changing every single day, but like you've said, they're way ahead on it, certainly above people like ourselves who are getting up there in years, but have wonderful stories to share. And Juan, you know, you and I, although we may not have come together on too many occasions, you know, we have wonderful stories to share. And I know I still owe you that lobster. So let's meet somewhere and do that sometime soon. It's been a real pleasure, Juan. And, you know, anytime you want us to do this again to help, you know, the people out there understand what goes on in the sailing industry and our business, you know, I'd be thrilled. And I'm very honored that we've had this conversation together.
I'm sure it's not going to happen next week, Jerry.
No.
As soon as we got the next regatta, okay, let's call David and get the old
team back together,
and then just go have fun.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And we will allow you to lead again. No problem. You can yell us. That's fine. I'm fine. Okay.
And Juan, I look forward to the next time that we go-kart racing again. We've had some great times doing that, and you know, we should do it again.
Let's leave it that way. Let's leave the unknown of the results of the last time.
Right. Okay, Juan. Well, it's been a real pleasure. You know, good luck with the boat show, and I'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thank you, Jerry, and looking forward to race again in the near future.
Great. Okay. Cheers.